Over the course of the last few videos, I have been talking sporadically about Cortana throughout them all. I've had a lot of people message me who say that they want to know more about Cortana, so today we're going to make a list of the top 12 things you might not know about Cortana. Relax back, I've got this, we'll take it from here. Did you know Cortana's been involved in a blackmailing scandal? Now, Cortana isn't afraid to bend or break the rules from time to time, and at one point she even actually blackmailed someone. The person was Colonel James Ackerson from the UNSC. The blackmail wasn't completely unprovoked, I'll be honest. Now, before the fall of Reach, and shortly after Cortana and Master Chief were first introduced to each other, they were given a test by Colonel Ackerson, where the test was designed so that there would be almost no way that they would survive. However, they did. Obviously. Now, shortly after this test, Cortana took her revenge by hacking into the Colonel's system and blackmailing him in the hopes of getting him sent to the front lines. Now, it might be somewhat extreme measure to take, but I think she was probably justified. The Colonel did try to kill her and the Master Chief. If you've heard about the story of Master Chief deflecting a missile with his arm, that was the event that they're talking about. Cortana is human. Kind of. Now, Cortana is an AI, but she was flash cloned from Dr. Catherine Halsey's brain. Now, what this means is that Cortana has Dr. Halsey's brains, and that includes her intellect and her personality. This is why Cortana behaves so human-like instead of like a computer program. She essentially is Dr. Halsey. Cortana even takes on the appearance of a younger Dr. Halsey whenever she appears in hologram form. Now, a funny thing to note here, Cortana will occasionally say things that Dr. Halsey has already said at some point, while Cortana wasn't present to hear her say it, because she has that cloned memory. That's how alike the two of them are. Cortana has a sister, I'm not joking. When Dr. Halsey was in the process of creating Cortana, she actually ended up with 20 of these flash cloned brains of her own. Now, of those 20, only 2 ended up surviving. One of those was obviously Cortana, that, you know, everyone's come to know and love, and now in Halo 5 hate. But who was the other one? Well, the other flash clone brain that Dr. Halsey created was named Calmia. Now, Dr. Halsey used Calmia to test prototype subroutines that would later be used for Cortana. She was almost like the prototype of Cortana. And after that, Dr. Halsey was supposed to destroy Calmia, and she refused to do so and kept Calmia around. Now, because Cortana and Calmia were both cloned from Dr. Halsey's brain, they are essentially sisters, with Calmia being the older of the two, and that would also make Dr. Halsey their mother. Who needs a crew when you've got Cortana? There are many things that Cortana's good at, helping to kill aliens or coming up with plans, reassuring the Master Chief when he feels a bit iffy. But there's one skill that she has that wasn't actually something she was designed for. Cortana has shown herself to be extremely good at managing spacecraft. She has acted as the AI for a variety of different ships, including the Pillar of Autumn and the Forward Unto Dawn. She even did such a good job of the Pillar of Autumn that the AI that was designed to manage the spaceship was never actually implemented. They do limit her. Her ship management skills are limited to crew duties and deciding the menu in the cafeteria, and pretty much every combat situation. Now, I know if ever I need a manager for a spaceship, I'm calling Cortana. Did you know Cortana was originally supposed to be British? If you're like me, then you probably get some strange ideas in your head, like, you know, what would Cortana sound like with a different accent? Strangely enough, she was originally planned to be British. Martin O'Donnell wanted Cortana's accent to be British before they had even found a voice actor for her. This led to Cortana's script having several British idioms entrenched in it, and even after casting the non-British Jen Taylor, who we all love, for the role, they left some of her original British-esque lines in. For instance, in the Halo CE campaign, she uses the British idiom "sod off" when she talks to 343 Guilty Spark in the control room of Halo. Although the first game is the only one where this occurs because Jen Taylor stayed on for the long run, it's still kind of weird to imagine a British Cortana. There have actually been lots of Cortanas. While it's technically not possible to make another Cortana, there kind of have been a few. Cortana actually has the ability to make clones of herself. She got this ability from a Covenant AI that she encountered on a Covenant ship. She dissected and destroyed that AI and gained the ability to create clones of herself. And these clones have a lot of the same abilities as Cortana, but not all of them, and are also less functional than the original. Essentially, Cortana has the ability to create disposable copies of herself and can be used to fulfill specific purposes. In one instance, she used hundreds of clones in order to overwhelm a Covenant security AI. And in another, she used the clones to create a shield for the Master Chief. We all know Halo 4, right? Now, they may be imperfect clones, but it's still a pretty versatile ability. Cortana uses her hologram to store data. Now, as an AI, there's a very real possibility of running out of storage space, and in the Halo universe, this can be a very bad thing. Running out of storage space generally, or learning too much, can cause the AI to go into a state of rampancy, which usually means that the AI doesn't have long before it dies. I'm sure we've all seen how the whole story of Halo 4 played out. Cortana found a pretty neat little workaround for this problem. She actually stores information in her hologram. She's capable of storing huge amounts of data in the microscopic lines of her holographic appearance. Now, this increases the maximum amount of data that she's allowed, as well as making the information that she stores in her hologram harder to find for others because they don't know where to look for it. Now, I don't know about you, but I probably would not think to look in the hologram itself for information. She chose Master Chief because he was lucky. Now, there are many reasons to choose a candidate for a position. Intelligence, qualifications, experience. But what about luck? Cortana was allowed to choose which Spartan she would be working with. She did her research, she learned everything about all of the Spartans that were available, and drew up a list of candidates that would do very well. All of them. She, of course, ended up picking Master Chief, Petty Officer John 117. But for what reason? There were two things that really set the Chief apart from the other candidates. He has a better neural compatibility than the others, and, most importantly, according to Cortana, he was lucky. This makes me wonder how luck is measured, because I also think, I'm a lucky person, but I also have the worrying suspicion that I just repress all my unlucky memories. In any case, Cortana did choose the Chief, turned out pretty lucky. Cortana staved off rampancy longer than most AIs. In the Halo universe, AI have a much shorter lifespan than your average human being. In general, AIs like Cortana have a functional lifespan of about 7 years. After those 7 years, an AI will have mapped its memory in such a way that it causes endless feedback loops that eventually lead to rampancy and the failure of said AI. Cortana's no exception to this, and actually should have gone rampant a lot sooner than she did. On installation 04, she took in so much data that she was actually processing slower and beginning to go into rampancy. Dr. Halsey ended up having to step in and delete a load of memory. There was also that time that she was captured and tortured by the Gravemind at the end of Halo 2. All in all, she lasted longer than she would have, even lasting longer than the 7 years expectancy. Following on from the rampancy point, some people believe that she went crazy and lived. Now, typically AI have about 7 years before they put too much memory into processing. We've discussed that part. However, it is theorised that there is a stage of rampancy where the AI can survive. This is called metastability and was actually in the last video I did, so check that out on the card above. A metastable AI is one that has gone through the previous stages of rampancy, which are melancholia, anger, and jealousy, and they can be considered fully human at that stage. The creation of a metastable AI would be a huge technological milestone if it could be done reliably every time. Now, there are currently only 3 AI who have possibly achieved metastability. One of them is Cortana by the end of Halo 5. Now, after the events of Halo 4, Cortana was uploaded to the Domain, which is a Forerunner collective intelligence, basically, and was apparently, and I put this with air quotes because we're not 100% certain, cured of her rampancy, thus achieving metastability. Cortana can control Forerunner technology. Now, several months after the events of the Halo 4 game, Forerunner technology, such as Guardians and everything else, started to be activated all across the galaxy. No one knew why the Guardians had been activated or by whom. Well, I hate to break it to you if you didn't know already, but it was Cortana. Our thought to be dead AI basically was given the ability to control the Guardians as well as the Prometheans to her own ends. How? Well, after sacrificing herself at the end of Halo 4 and being uploaded to the Forerunner construct known as the Domain, effectively the Forerunner Internet, for lack of a better term, she was cured, air quotes again, of her rampancy. She was simply allowed to requisition the help of the Guardians and Prometheans. Since the Guardians are definitely a force to be reckoned with, you would hope that Cortana's goals are benevolent. Well, unfortunately, they're not. Cortana's claiming the mantle of responsibility. Now, there is a Forerunner philosophy that states that the most technologically advanced race in the galaxy has the responsibility of maintaining peace between all other races in the galaxy. This is known as the mantle of responsibility, and in the year 2558, that mantle was claimed by Cortana. Now, after being cured of her rampancy, Cortana seized control of the actual domain that used to be part of the Forerunners. She activated the Guardians and claimed the mantle of responsibility for herself. The mantle was meant to be handed down to humanity, who are thought to have been known to the Forerunners as Reclaimers, but Cortana believes that the Created, a faction of AI that was founded by her, are the rightful Reclaimers, and thus believes that the mantle is rightfully theirs. She requisitions the use of Guardians in order to fulfill the responsibility that comes with the mantle and police the galaxy. And unfortunately, Cortana thinks humanity is a troublesome species. Pretty tough break if you ask me. Cortana shouldn't exist. There are a couple of items on this list that describe how Cortana, as well as her creator, Dr. Halsey, have been involved in some really shady dealings. And here's another one. Cortana was created illegally. Now, normally the process in which a smart AI like Cortana is created, flash cloning a brain, can only be done on a person who is recently deceased. As it turns out, flash cloning a living brain would result in the destruction of the brain and the death of that person. Cortana was not created in this manner, but instead she was flash cloned from the living brain of Dr. Halsey. Now, this was an experimental and very much unauthorized procedure, and thus deemed illegal by the UNSC. Even after the success, which resulted in 18 of the flash-cloned brains dying, there were a lot of rules that Dr. Halsey and Cortana were given. Rules that they, well, pretty much ignored. So that's it. A few little notes about Cortana. I hope you've learned something from these. Please, if you like the video, if you like the content, please hit subscribe, press the like button, and leave a comment. Tell me if you knew or didn't know any of the items that I've told you about Cortana today. And as always, happy gaming.